Hello, hello. I think I'm finally live and I'm in the right angle. I just tried to do this through the live video I scheduled, but unfortunately I couldn't figure out how to go onto that link. So if you're on my tutoring art page, hopefully you found this one and you're able to log into it. Sorry for the confusion. And if you saw the brief live video that I just posted, well, I'm sure you got a big chuckle out of it. So enjoy. Anyway, in case you guys don't know me, my name is Vivian Davis. I am an artist in Norfolk, Virginia. I actually moved here from Maryland about 7 months ago. And we moved to the Chesapeake Bay on the bay. And it's awesome, and it's what we were looking forward to doing. So happy to be here. So to get started, let me tell you a little bit more about myself, but really about my business. If you're on my Tutoring Art Facebook page, then you already know that I teach classes. At least you have an idea that I do. And I've been teaching classes since about 2007. And I started a arts program in Maryland with the Freedom Area Recreation Council. I also did some homeschool classes for the students of Granite Classical Tutorials in Columbia. And shortly thereafter, I started working as a professional artist, doing commission work, and even founded a club, an art club. We were in a rural section of Maryland and wanted to meet other artists. So I started the Sykesville Painting Club, and I have these wonderful artists now that will be my friends for forever, even though they're in Maryland and I'm in Virginia. So I've been involved in a lot of different things up in Maryland, and this is kind of my first adventure here in Virginia as part of the DeArt Center, which is in Norfolk. And the DeArt Center has resident artists. I applied and was juried in, and I'm happy to say I have a small studio there. I also have been working a little bit from home, and which is what I'm doing today, because we are temporarily closed due to the circumstances. And part of the reason that I scheduled this session today at 2 o'clock was because I knew some people were kind of stuck at home as well. Now, I know there are some people that were interested that work during the day, and I will likely set up a later session next week, and we'll do something fun for those of you that want to come. Now, I may have one person on today, and I may have multiple people on today. For my Facebook event, I had a lot of people interested, but I realized that it's kind of a hectic time and there are a lot of different things to figure out, and this is just a time to relax and enjoy. So we're going to get started here in a moment, and I'm looking to see, I can't really tell who is logged on. I see Laura. Okay, and I'm not sure if there's anyone else because they haven't commented, and I don't know how to look at the page itself. I couldn't set this up through my computer. For some reason it wouldn't load, so this is my phone, and we're going to work out those kinks before my next session. But if hopefully you can see my canvas here, my lovely, here I'll do my Vanna. I have a 12 by 16 canvas, and I will be demonstrating on that, but if you have a smaller canvas, that's fine. I think in my information, as far as materials, all you needed was something rectangular, as we're doing a rectangular scene. So what are we painting? We are painting a beach scene to be seen through the window, and it could be any window. So if you pulled up any beach photo references, maybe you pulled up some window photo references. This one's very generic. I actually have an Antigua beach scene up on my computer right now, which has a really nice crystal, almost crystal clear, but blue-green color. It has some green mountains in the distance and a lot of clouds. And we probably won't do a lot of clouds today because we're doing a shorter version. In fact, I'm going to get everybody started. We're going to draw this in. We're going to add some color. We'll get to a few details. As you can see, this is a very simplified painting. It's simplified because this is one of the samples that I've used for my painting classes or painting sessions that I've done for big groups of people who've never painted before. So I jumped on that craze, I think, not quite early on, but right at the beginning. A few years ago, I had some folks ask me if I could do a class for them. And so I started doing some simple paintings to kind of work with, and did it through the Rec Council in the beginning, and then turned into a process that became fundraisers. And I've done a lot of fundraisers since. So if you go to my web page, it's tutoringart.com. And in any event, you need to reach me. I have my Facebook page is Tutoring Art, my Instagram is Tutoring Art, my web page is tutoringart.com. And if you go to how to do a paint night fundraiser or a paint fundraiser, then you'll see that there's a lot of clients listed that I've done events for. So with that, it just became a lot of fun, and I've had other artists that have worked with me, and I have another artist in Maryland now, Tara Mayers, who continues to do some fundraising events up there, and unfortunately have recently had to be postponed because of, again, the virus and the fact that we're supposed to be social distancing. And so that brings me to the next subject, which is why I'm doing this today. I normally charge, obviously, to teach these sessions, and as I said, we do them as fundraisers, and I give a discount to the fundraiser. But I am going to be doing a series of these and different mediums as well, just to kind of give people an idea of what I can teach, and hopefully when everything goes back to normal, we'll get some folks interested in either setting up maybe some regular classes or coming to some of my classes at the Art Center, or even setting up fundraisers. So I'm looking forward to that. So with that, no more talk. We're going to get started here in a moment. So I showed you this. I'm going to guide you through so you won't be staring at that the entire time. If you are on your computer, and you have access to the painting that I posted on the Facebook page, you can always look at that also as a reference. If you printed out anything specific to paint, then you may be changing up some of your colors. Now, what do you need? We need a canvas, as I said. I even suggested for people who didn't have a canvas, they could just use a piece of cardboard. Maybe they've ordered a lot of stuff on Amazon. If this is just for practice, you cut out a nice rectangle, you paint a little bit of white paint on it, let it dry, and then you can use that. Because I know we shouldn't be running out to buy a bunch of materials. Maybe you can order them online, but I wanted to make it as simple as possible. So you'll need a cup of water. We're going to be rinsing our brushes. I have a variety of brushes I'm going to show you here. And you don't need all of these brushes, but you can kind of see. I love this Princeton Art and Brush Company brushes. Been using them for a while now. They're fairly comfortable. They have different ones. The ones we'll be using today primarily are the flat brush here, this big one. And we'll be using this big round brush. And I'll be using one of these smaller round brushes. So if you have anything like that, you're fine. Use something that's close. I also have an angled brush here, which is also usable if you have one of those. And if you want to put more details in later, you might need a little bit, smaller brush head. So there's one that I have available. Okay, so those are the brushes. Next, you're going to want some type of a palette, or maybe a plastic plate, which is all I'm using here. You can see it already has some white paint on it, and that's all you need. And that's easily to be thrown away if you don't have a regular palette. You can use a paper plate, which I do realize is better for our environment. But the only problem with those is that with a lot of water application, the paint tends to sink into the plate, but it's still usable. So if that's all you have, grab it. You may have to replenish your paint a little more often, but it should work, okay? Then paper towel, of course, just any kind of paper towel, a big wad of paper towel. Now we probably need to reduce that waste as well, because it seems that when you go to the store these days, you can't find paper towel and you can't find toilet paper. Although my husband did head out today and forgot where he went. Not Aldi, it's got a German name.
It's like Little or something.
Little. That's my daughter in the background. Little or something like that. Anyway, and they had toilet paper. Yay. So my husband got a big pack, so we don't have to worry about that when we get close to finishing, which would be probably in the next couple of weeks. And so we may never need it if this thing resolves. Now, my daughter is also an artist, but today she is being a cooking artist. She is making eggplant parmesan in the background. So every now and then, if you hear a little noise, my studio at home is just a little nook off my kitchen, and that's sufficient for me to paint. And so she's in the kitchen at the moment. Okay, now paint colors real quick. So white paint, obviously a good idea to have. We're going to be lightening up some of our colors. If you're going to do traditional kind of bluish water, for the painting that I originally did, I had used, I think it was a cobalt blue, but you can use cerulean blue, which I'm going to use for the sky, and also ultramarine blue. And these are Liquitex Basics paints. A lot of times when I teach, I use a lot of these Blick Acrylic. They're student acrylics. I also have some paints that I use for my own personal painting that are a little more expensive. There's the Daler-Rowney, and I have some, let's see, what do I have? I love these Utrecht paints. They work pretty good, the artist colors. But these are thicker paints, so if you have those and you've painted before, you're going to be doing a lot of this on your own, so I'm just going to work with you on the composition of this. And you can use any paints that you want. So you'll need the blues, you'll need potentially the turquoise if you want to add it. You'll need some yellow. I have some cadmium, and I also have, in the Blick Acrylic, I have some deep yellow. So we'll use that for a little bit of the background sky. And then for the palm, I have some light green, which is kind of just to brighten it up, but ideally you want something like sap green, which is what I have in the Liquitex. So either one of those is fine. Again, we're just practicing today. And then last but not least, you need a sand color. So I have some Blick Unbleached Titanium, which will give me that lighter sand. You can add a little white to that if you really want a white sandy beach. And then I have a little bit of burnt sienna, which I originally added to the sand in my painting because it was based more on like a local, Virginia, Carolina beach where the sand is a little more brown. Okay, I seem to have a shadow I wish I didn't have. And I'm really not sure how to avoid it. Hopefully you can see that all right, but there's my canvas, okay? So let's see, did I forget any other materials? I think that'll be it. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. If you have your photo reference, you wanna put that somewhere handy. You don't need an easel. I'm on an easel. I actually have a very strange setup right now, but it should improve as time goes on. I'm a novice at this, so forgive me if I sound a little goofy sometimes, but I get a little nervous when people watch me on camera. Not so much when I teach in front of a big group, strangely enough, in person. But this is, like I said, a first time event for me. And I'll get better as we go on. All right, so I'm going to start out with my big round brush because we're going to go ahead and kind of map out this design. Now, sometimes with my painting sessions, when I have an event, they're usually 2 to 3 hours. There are a lot of people, there's a lot of conversation, and a lot of distractions. People will get up to get something to drink or to eat. And so I have to go back and I have to repeat a lot. I'm not going to repeat that much today, okay? So I am just going to walk you through. I will move a little slower than I normally would because I realize you guys need time to catch up. But the good news is that I'll save this video once I'm finished, and then you can re-watch it and go back and do anything that you may have forgotten. And in fact, when we're done, we won't be necessarily 100% done. We're not going to be working on a realistic painting today. This is mostly for art therapy, which we could probably all use right now. And so we're not necessarily going to get to those final details, but we'll get most of it finished, and then you can tweak it on your own when we're done. We're going to go to about 4 o'clock. So really that only gives us about oh, let's see, an hour and 50 minutes, about 50 minutes. So that's not a lot of time. Let's see, well, no, maybe less than that. 40 minutes, an hour and 40 minutes. So it's about 2:18 right now, I think. Okay, so I'm going to wet my brush. You see, I just kind of wet my brush. And I need a color to kind of map it out, okay? So if I use a color that's too light, no one will be able to see it. And I just moved my phone there, sorry about that. So I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna. You can use a brown, you could use a light blue, anything that just that you're going to water this down anyway, but just something to kind of sketch this out. So when I usually do these classes, again, for the sake of time, we'll do sections of color at a time. This time, we're going to do it a little differently because this is how I normally paint. I will either sketch with pencil on rare occasion, with acrylic, not typically because I don't like having pencil on the canvas. But if you're more comfortable drawing this out with pencil, feel free. Again, this is practice. And if you cover up the pencil, in the end, it won't matter anyway. But I'm going to use a burnt sienna. I've watered it down on my brush. And I'm just going to kind of figure this out, kind of map it out. So I know I'm going to have windows. And through the back of the windows, you're going to see the scene. So what I would normally do in my classes is I would just paint the water, and I would paint the sky, and I would paint the sand, and then I would come back at the end and we'd add the windows. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and sketch the windows in as well. And we're going to let that paint dry. Again, if it's very watery, you'll be able to cover it up, but just work kind of light. Water it down quite a bit. You want more water than paint, and then you should be okay. All right, so I'm going to figure out my horizon line a little bit. I'm just going to draw just almost like a dotted line because I just want to have a line that goes across. So, and you know, you can see I'm kind of sketching it. I'm not worried about a perfect line. If you have trouble with straight lines, you can always grab a ruler. And I wouldn't suggest grabbing the ruler right now because you're going to be putting other paint on top of this anyway. So you can just go back and fix your line when you go to do that part. So we're just drawing a straight line across. That's your horizon line. And it's almost completely between halfway. If you're a little higher, a little lower, it's not that big deal. But it's between halfway between both ends of the canvas here. Okay? So that's our horizon line, and then we have kind of a shoreline, right? Where we're going to have some of the foam for the painting. And so rather than going all the way to the end here, I'm just going to kind of start right in the corner, just a little bit above that. And then I'm going to go not quite to the halfway mark, but maybe about 2 fingers below that. I'm just going to make a little line. And then I'm just going to kind of, at an angle, not necessarily a straight line, okay? Maybe even put in a little waves in there because you're going to fill it in with paint later anyway. And I'm going to come down. And now I've got that angle that we had in my original. Now, you are welcome to do this on a straight line if you prefer. It doesn't really matter. Again, if you have a photo reference and you'd rather use that, then I'm just kind of guiding you as far as the composition is concerned. And then if you haven't really painted in acrylic paint much and you need a little bit of help with blending and such, I'll be able to help you with that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is come up here right above the horizon line, right here. And I have a little series of mountains in the distance. And they only start about, not halfway, but maybe a little further down. And they're not very tall because they're in the distance. So I'm going to start out kind of short, maybe about a 1/4 inch, kind of go up about 1 inch, and then maybe give myself a bigger mountain here, and then come down and then go straight up there. So that's going to be kind of my mountain line. Not mountain lion, mountain line. Yay. Okay. So hopefully we have that. So you should have 3 sets of lines now. The clouds we're just going to kind of figure in. But, you know, if you want to give yourself a little idea of where you're going to put those little fluffy clouds, I'm no Bob Ross. You know, I say, I'll put one here, I'm going to put one here. You can just draw a little sketch down there. It doesn't matter. We're going to go cover all that up anyway. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to blend it in there. just to give you, to remind you, but once we put the paint in, you're not gonna see that. So that was just silly. All right, let's go to the palm. So the palm tree, in this case, is just coming from the side. You don't see the whole thing. All you see is one of the branches. And so I started in the left corner, and I go down just about to the horizon line, but not quite, and probably about a third of the way over. So if you figure that a third is here and here, then somewhere in there, not all the way down, I'm gonna draw a line that goes up to the corner of the canvas, okay? So just a straight line, not a straight line, because it's a palm branch. And then from there, you're gonna end up putting some lines, but I wouldn't worry about that right now, but that's where your branch is gonna be. And then I'm gonna go ahead and give myself an idea of the windows. Now the windows in my painting are big windows. You can see they kind of fill up about a quarter on both sides. So if you're gonna be doing those windows, then we're gonna go about a quarter over, and then you can kind of see at the bottom how they angle up so that you have the perspective, and they come down here. So they go up from the bottom, they go down from the top. So we're gonna go ahead and do some of that. So they are going to line up with this foam almost. You're probably gonna end up actually bringing your foam up here, somewhere like that. So for right now, if you want to use the bottom of this line that you use to go across for the window, that'll give you that perfect angle that you need. And you're going to go over about a quarter of the way. So if this is half, then this is about a quarter, right? You can even put your lines, because we're going to paint over this anyway. And so I'm going to bring this line up here. You guys see that? See if I can get a little closer. There we go. I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to bring this line down here, and then I'm going to come up a little higher. And if you use the same, you can use the same distance, or you can go up a little tiny bit higher, as if the window goes up a little higher anyway. And then you're going to drag the line from here to this corner. Okay, so window number one. Window number one. Don't let this line fool you. This is going to be your horizon line. So in fact, we're not going to do any more of the window lines just now. That's just so you know that it's going to be there. If we do that, then you'll potentially get confused. Now we're going to come over to the other side, and I made a little quarter mark, right? We want to figure out how high we went up here, where this space is, so you can kind of draw yourself an imaginary line, and then come in, draw a dot, so that the two windows line up. Now there's always the possibility that the windows are not open the same distance, which means they would be a little off. So no one's going to worry too much about that. And then I'm going to draw a line. Well, I'm at a weird angle here. Draw a line that leads to that dot. Wow, this is pretty bad. I guess I can't paint at this kind of angle. Strange, huh? I have painted in some weird angles in front of people, let me tell you. A lot of times I have to hold the canvas way above my head and paint, just so I can show a large group of people what I'm doing. All right, then I'm going to add that corner. I'm going to work from that corner up, go to that quarter mark. And checking my lines, I was at an angle, so I fixed that. And then I'm going to come up here about the same height as this one. And I'm going to match up the line, okay? Just like that. All right. Ooh, I see my husband chimed in. Ooh, Abby, how are you? So glad to see you, my dear. So she's joined us as well. All right, and then I'm going to come up in the corner, and I'm going to bring this window down to there, or the angle down to there. So, to recap, you should have a horizon line. You should have a water line that goes at an angle here. You should have mountains. And then you should have just the outside edge of the windows here, here, and here. And then last but not least, you should have just the start of a palm. And that's just to give you a visual of where it's going to be. When we paint the sky, we're probably going to end up covering most of that. Now, can you guys see that? Are you able to comment so that I know if you can see it? Laura, can you see that okay? Or are you having trouble? Since this is kind of the first one, I need to be sure people can see things. Anybody else want to chime in? Tell me if you can see it. No, maybe not. All right, maybe you can't chime in right away. I don't know if I've changed that somehow so that you can't. I had some trouble this morning trying to figure out what I was doing. Laura says, we see it, yay. Okay, perfect. All right, good. Just want to make sure you're good. Okay, now we're going to go back to the traditional way we start these paintings, which means we're going to start filling in some color. So since we're going to work on the water first, we're going to work on the water first rather than the sky, we're going to go ahead and use our flat brush. So that would be it's just going to be a lot quicker to fill this in if you use a flat brush. And you get to mix your own color. Now what I decided to do in this case is I wanted my water to be a little bit more blue-green. So I am going to, in fact, well, no, I can't really show you without messing up the angle of the phone. So that's something I have to work on too. I'm going to use a little bit of this cerulean blue. And if you want to put a little extra, it could be cobalt blue. It could be fluorescent blue. I use a lot of different blues when I paint. We're not going for 100% realism here. We're going for a nice vivid color and the illusion that we are looking out the window to this gorgeous water. So I'm going to put a pretty healthy helping of blue because I'm going to use this for the sky color as well. So if you guys can kind of see that as I drip into my white paint with my burnt sienna, that's all right. Okay, and then because I want to add a little bit of blue-green, I'm going to go ahead and grab my blue-green color, which is this aqua green, actually. I don't know why I said blue-green. Okay, so if you have some of that, great. You don't have to. If you have some ultramarine blue or a darker blue, that would be a good one for the darker shadows in the water. So in this case, I have this Liquitex ultramarine. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of that. And you don't need as much of that because that has kind of a purple tint to it when you paint. And so I wouldn't necessarily make the water this color at all, other than just to kind of add the darkness that we need later. All right, let me move this over. All right, and that's all we're going to need for the moment. I just got paint on my hand, so I'm going to clean that up. All righty. And now I am going to... Oh, we lost connection for a minute. You guys still there? Hopefully you're still there. Everybody there? Yeah, I think we're okay. That was strange. Kind of just went out for a moment. Anyway, I'm going to grab a little bit of white paint and a little bit of the blue-green and a little bit of the blue. Now I'm messy on my plate when I paint, so you're going to kind of see I'm just kind of mixing it all together. Everybody see that a little bit? Oh, there we go. I'm afraid I'm going to drip it right onto my phone. And then we're going to start filling this in, so you can kind of see the color when I spread it out. Again, I love turquoise blue water. I've been fortunate enough to go on a couple of cruises. Thankfully not one during this pandemic. But, and I've gotten to see this beautiful water. I actually love the crystal kind of, oh, I'm disconnecting again. I think I lost you guys again. Are you guys losing this? Is it coming in and out? It's really strange. I suspect that there are a lot of people doing these live videos right now because that's the way people are connecting and sharing things. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to create some additional problems going forward, because I had a hard time connecting on my laptop and I finally gave up and it came up on my phone. So I said, I'll just do it on my phone. All right, so I'm going to fill in that section. Then I'm going to come over here, and it's okay if you don't leave the exact width that you need for the window. If you want to leave a little bit of white to remind you that it's there, that's fine. So I'm going to go to about here, and I'm going to fill that in, and then I need a little bit of white again because I had it really dark on my plate. If you want to paint the sides of your canvas, you can do that. Make sure that you wet your brush in between when you're painting so that the paint goes smoothly, especially if you're using really thick paint. And I am kind of painting at an angle since this water is at an angle in my viewpoint here. And if you have some lines, that's okay. We're going to come back and touch this up anyway. This isn't the final pass through. So we're just filling in some color for now. All right, and then I'm going to come over to this part as well and do the same thing. So it's like instead of one run through, we're doing 3 sections. 3 sections. Now, let me say this. I know that most of the people that will probably watch this haven't done much painting before. I'll have some artists that might come on, and everybody paints a little bit differently. And if you've been painting with acrylic paint for a long time, which is what I'm using right now, then you know this might be very elementary to you. When I started doing these, I did them for people who had never painted before. So most of the instruction I give tends to be very simple. But hopefully you'll pick up some of some techniques as we go on when I show you some blending and such. Also, it's just to get you painting. So even if you do this with me and it inspires you to go and paint on your own, then that's great. So if you know some people who are artists or people who are bored at home right now during the day, and I know a lot of people are going through photos and some people are doing house projects, which is all great, but art can be very therapeutic. So this is just a suggestion for someone, and hey, it's free. So I am having a good time myself. So I put a little bit of dark on the top here, and we're gonna get darker later if you want to throw a little dark in at the top. Usually with the deeper water, it's going to be a little darker. Didn't put enough on my brush though. And I don't want to paint too much as this is drying, so I'm just putting a little for now to remind me to come back and do some more. So I'm painting a little bit more here. I'll give you guys a few minutes to catch up. Okay, so you see I've started a little bit of a dark edge there by the horizon, but we'll get a little darker. We'll come back to it. And I may even throw a little bit more turquoise and a little more white in here when I come back to it. All right, let's see who's on board. Okay, Laura's still there. Ooh, Trish, are you on? How awesome is that? Goody, goody. Well, I have at least a couple artists watching. So you guys can give me feedback later, as you guys have the experience. All right, give you a moment. Now we're going to do the sky. So we're just going right to the sky. I'm going to start at the top, and we're going to do a light blue. Not going to do the clouds just yet. And so you can pick a blue. You can decide how bright the sky is today. In my neck of the woods, there is no blue sky. It's all gray. We had rain earlier. In fact, I just got a new little dog, and it was not fun walking that little dog in the rain this morning. We just did kind of a quick run and then came back. But the nice thing is I can see the bay, and it's very choppy at the moment just because there's a lot of wind. It's supposed to get windier later too. All right, so I'm going to use my cerulean blue, which I never know if I say that right. And I'm going to mix a little white into it. And I'm going to test the color on the canvas to make sure I like that color. And I think I sort of like that. So it's just a little of the cerulean blue and a little bit of white. And this time, sometimes I mix them on the plate and I show everybody how to mix them. But in this case, I'm gonna let you guys kind of mix it on your own. And if you can't get the right mix on your plate, then you get the color up on your canvas, much like I'm doing right now, and you can add some white or you can add some blue onto the canvas. You don't have to mix on your plate. And since I'm filling spaces, again, you're gonna have some lines, some streaks potentially, especially when you first put on a first coat. Also depends on the quality of the paint. If you're using a thicker paint, I should say, then you don't need to go back over it too much, but we are going to go back over this. We're going to add some clouds anyway. So I am going back and forth though. So if I do end up with some lines, they're in the correct direction here. And if you stop short, like if I stop short, like I go across here, you can kind of, if you can see it, I'm not sure if you can, but you'll get these little marks and you don't want that. So if I were going off, if I had the canvas on either side of this, I would go completely off the canvas. But in this case, I'm just going to go up to the window and back, up to the window and back, and spread that paint out. You want to spread all your paint out because we just need a thin coat to start. You don't need a lot of color on there. It takes longer to dry. Acrylic is pretty fast, so you don't need to wait too long, but also you don't want to work on wet paint. So if we want to come back to it, we want it dry by the time we come back to it. So I'm going to go up to the corner here. Not worried about the perfect edge for that window because we're going to come back with white paint and do that anyway. And I'm going all the way to the top. Sometimes I hold my canvas when I do these things when I'm teaching, but in order for me to be able to keep my phone straight so you guys can see, I can't lift my canvas or I'll have to move the phone. So other than the brief times that I accidentally hit it when I go to get some paint, I want you to have a consistent view. Okay. Mix a little bit more paint. Now here's a thought. While you're going, if you're waiting on me at any given point, take a picture of what you've done so far and send it to me on a comment. Just like you guys have been when you sign in, I get to kind of see you're here. If you comment, I think you should be able to add a photo. I'm not 100% sure. Laura, you be my guinea pig. Take a picture and send it. And if not, then you can post them on the event page, because I tried to do this on the event page. I'm really not certain I'm in the event page right now. So we'll have to try that again. All right, now I got to go in the windows, because you can obviously see through the windows. I'll mix a little bit more paint. I'm going to come over here. Now I'm going to cover up my palm, and oops, I do want to leave a little bit of space for the windows, but I'm going to paint right over it. And if you painted with a darker color, this first run, you should be able to see through it, so you can still see that line that you're going to use. If you painted in blue, you might not. Where I sit with my easel, I can look out into my neighborhood. And I needed a raincoat because I've been walking my dog, and I really, really wanted a yellow raincoat. But my husband's like, no, you'll look like the Gorton's fisherman. I had to laugh. Yeah, I'm looking outside the window, and my neighbor across the street has a bright yellow raincoat. So I think I ordered navy blue. I wanted it in burgundy, but I know Amazon's kind of slow right now because they're sending out the more important things on priority. And so I wasn't going to get this until Friday, but if I ordered the burgundy one, I wouldn't get it until April sometime. 22nd, I think. It was just some late date. I'm like, no, I need that raincoat. It was hard walking my dog this morning. So I ordered a big raincoat. All right, one more section. You guys with me still? It's like watching paint dry if you're not painting though, right? Because I'm not that funny. That I can tell you. I'll tell you a story every now and then, but I'm not very funny. I try to be, but I can't remember jokes. I don't remember punchlines. Like if I start to tell a joke and I go, oh, I think I got a great one, and I get to the punchline, I'll be, oh no. And then it won't be any good because then everybody gets mad because they don't know what the punchline is. So I don't tell jokes very often. My daughter doesn't think I'm funny either. My daughters are funny though. Especially when they're together. They're total goose. All right. Notice I'm not concerned again about the width of the windows because we're going to go right back over that. But I got and my window's a little funny here. I'll have to fix that. I'll probably have to go over with in fact, if you touch the water part on your painting and it looks like it's fairly dry, you can go in and do any touch-up that you need to do. I'll bring that down a little bit. Like I said, I'm working at a little bit of an angle, so I don't see everything I need to see. I'm just coming in and adjusting that. Now I'm going to clean my brush. If you have to do that, I added more paint. I'm cleaning my brush because I don't want to completely change the color of the paint that's already there because I'm not ready to do that yet. So I'm just I cleaned my brush and now I'm just spreading that out a little. This way and then out that way. All right. That'll be a little better for when I do the window. Maybe bring that in a little bit more. So now's the time to do some touch up. If you're still working, then keep working. All right. Okay. That's that part. All right. Ash thinks you're funny. Oh, Ash, I love you. You're so cute. That's because I'm one of those goofy adults, you know, and if it were your mother, you would say she embarrasses you. Like my daughters think that, even as adults, I think. All right, well, Lauren has. But if I do this for other people, sometimes they think it's funny, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, but thank you, Ash. Love you. Okay. Mountains. Now, when I first, this painting sample that I did the mountains in the distance. And what happens when you look at mountains in the distance is you kind of lose their color. The ones that I'm looking at on this visual or this photo reference that I pulled up because I wanted to change it a little bit has green mountains. So you have the choice of either doing some distance, like, kind of a medium blue, light blue mountains, or you can kind of follow along and do these little green mountains, which I decided I was going to do. So I'm changing it a little, not too much, in which case now I need some green. So I had shown you a light green. I also showed you, which now I'm trying to find here, and I just moved my painting. Let's go back. Go back. Oh, there we go. Kind of a sap green. So a foresty green would work. And if you don't have that, let's say you only have the light green or a medium green, you can mix a little brown into it. And that should give you a darker color. If you put black in it, I suspect they'll turn, especially with a medium green, it'll turn kind of grayish. So you don't want to do that. But you can definitely use, medium green, like this light green. And then, in fact, maybe I'll try that real quick because I have a little burnt sienna on my plate. Alrighty. Cindy, how are you, Cindy? That's See, all my artist friends are coming on. This is nice. That's nice support there. Okay, so this is this green. Can you guys see me? Ah, there it is. Ah, it's too light, right? So I'm going to mix it in with a little burnt sienna. And you need more green, less burnt sienna. And that'll darken up the color a little bit. Turns it a little bit kind of olive. I don't know if you guys are trying that. So not as dark as I'm going for. My sap green's a little bit better. Then I can use it as a base to start. I'm gonna lighten it up a little. Now you don't need a perfect edge because obviously with this green, you're thinking, okay, these are green mountains, so you can even kind of, you don't have to make a perfect flat area. You can kind of smudge it in a little bit. Ideally, you're going to want the darker green. So if you don't have it, again, maybe put a little bit of that ultramarine blue, and that'll darken it. In fact, I just took that same green and I put a little ultramarine blue, and see how much darker it is now? Because I really do want the darker color. We'll come back and give it some highlights and you'll be able to tell that there's a little sun out. And we go all the way across. Now I paint a lot with this round brush, because it has a little bit of a point on it, but at any point, haha, no pun intended, you want to change over to your smaller brush, feel free. You know, I tend to use the small brush for more of the details later, and I may also use it when we go to do the windows. So I'll fill that in real quick. And again, we're going to fill everything in. We're going to go back and do a little bit of detail, and then I want you guys to continue to paint. Take a break. That's why I'm only doing 2 hours. That gives you some time to take a break. Then maybe come back to it, spend another hour with it, and make it your own. Add some details. You know, I had some fun ideas, and I thought, I don't have time for that, because it would be kind of cool to maybe add a boat or somebody on a jet ski out in the water. You could do a little shark fin. You could do a dolphin jumping out of the water. You know, there's just for fun. And then when you get to look at it later, it might make you smile. Okay. Oh, you can't send pics. Darn. Well, I wonder, you know what you can do? You can post them on the event. If you go to my event page, you know, the event that I created for this, because like I said, I'm not sure I set this up in the event. But if you go to that event page, you can post some pictures. And so you can give me some like status, you know, like as you're going or whatever, you know. So if you want to try that, yeah, I thought maybe you could, but it's a shame you can't. Now, it wouldn't pop up for me anyway, because all I'm seeing is a little box. But you said you put the pics under discussion. Okay, perfect. You are just too, oh, Ash. Ash is so sweet. Well, I want to see how she does today. So, and Laura, of course. All right. Okay, here we go. All right, we're going to do some sand. All right, so sand, again, it's up to you. I did more of a brownish sand, which sometimes you get on the bay, or sometimes, you know, in some of the northern states, the sand is a little bit more brown. I like to think Caribbean, so with Caribbean, you get kind of a lighter color. I think this might have initially been something I kind of put together I'm trying to think, where was I? Because I did go somewhere where they had more of a brown sand, but I can't remember what I based it on. Anyway, so I'm going to use some unbleached titanium, which is this color here. Any kind of cream color that you might have. If you don't have that, okay, you can take a little bit of white. You can take, oh, look at this, I wiggled it again. You can take a little bit of burnt sienna. Now, if I use my burnt sienna, which I'm almost out of because I didn't form too much, and I add some white to it, this is what it's going to look like. And so that still creates a little bit of a sandy color. I need more burnt sienna though to kind of show you better. But it does give me, not much. Hold on, let me get a little bit more of this burnt sienna to give you a better example. So if you mixed a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of, probably a tiny bit of yellow, very tiny bit of yellow, and I'm going to do it as an example. So I'm putting a little bit of yellow, burnt sienna, yellow, and a little bit of white. And for you artists out there, if you have any other suggestions, feel free to comment in. All right. I'm mixing a little bit of yellow, a little bit of burnt sienna, and now look at this nice color. Now you see a little bit more yellow, add a little bit more white, and add a little bit more burnt sienna, and you'll get rid of some of that yellow tone. And now I have kind of a nice light color. And if it's too dark, add a little bit of extra white to it. And you'll see that just now, rather than using my unbleached titanium, I just made myself a beach color, a sand color. I love white sands anyway. Speaking of white sands, my daughter, my older daughter, is supposed to be getting married in October. I say supposed to. She's scheduled for October 23rd, and it was going to be a destination. It's going to be a destination wedding. So we're headed to White Sands National Park. It's now a national park in New Mexico. And she's nervous, of course, because, you know, if we have to quarantine more than we already are, there's always a chance that, you know, she won't get to fly out there. We won't get to fly out there. But I'm optimistic. You know, hopefully everyone's doing their part, staying in, not exposing themselves to too many people, not, if you're sick, obviously, you shouldn't be going out anyway, but I have faith in the American people. We're going to do the right thing, right? And that this thing's going to be short-lived. So anyway, so we're at White Sands, New Mexico. She went out there with her fiance and had engagement photos, and they were just gorgeous. It's so pretty out there. But the risk of getting married on sand dunes is a sandstorm. And so I was on the beach with my husband and my daughter. This was before we picked up our dog. And we had one of those, like, you know, winds that came in and it was blowing sand everywhere. And I'm going, oh no. We might experience that during a wedding. We'll see. But for the most part, the weather's really good there, and especially in October, it's pretty nice, and so we're optimistic it'll be pretty awesome. Okay. Now I still don't I like my tone. I kind of prefer, like I said, more white sand. So I'm just putting this color in now, and then I'm going to come back and use the white for some lightening, to lighten up some of the areas and give you that illusion of white sand. Now notice that I didn't leave any kind of line in between here, because we're going to be putting white foam for the waves, and so we have plenty of time to do that. I shouldn't say plenty of time. We have about a little over an hour to do it. All right. Ooh, I like that. You added a coral color for that pinky feel. That's good. I bet that's kind of cool. Very nice. All right. So hopefully you got some sand in there. Now we're not going to do the windows completely, but I'm going to go ahead. You know what? No, we're not. We're going to wait on the windows. We're still going to wait. We're going to go back to the water and kind of touch that up. And maybe start to add some of the foam, and then we'll work on the sky a little. So we're going to keep going to different areas. And so for the water, hopefully still have some of that color that you mixed. If not, you can mix a little bit more. You're going to use a darker shade of that, or a little bit of ultramarine blue for the very edge. Now here's the chance to fix your line. And if you prefer to have a straight line, you'll just take a ruler, preferably one that you don't mind getting paint on, and hold it right on that horizon line, and you're going to paint underneath it to create it. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and wing it. And I'm going to go, I just mixed a darker version of the color that I made earlier. And I'm going across the horizon line very carefully. You can use your smaller brush if you prefer. Going across. Now, we're doing this in sections, but make sure when you cross over that you're on that same line. And you don't want that to be just a line. So you want to put that line in pretty quick. And then you want to clean your brush really, 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 really well. Get that paint off, rinse it in the water. And with a fairly dry brush, I want you to take this color that you painted in, and I want you to kind of blend it down just a tiny bit. Just a little bit. So you don't have a line. That's the key. No line. So it gives you an edge, if you guys can see that. It gives me an edge, but it kind of goes away. Okay? Now, see how far you went here? You're going to want to do the same thing in the middle, and you're going to want to do the same thing to the left. So I'm going to finish my line now. Because I started painting this one already, I should have waited before I did that. I'm going to go ahead and blend some of that down so I don't end up with that line. And if you have some lines showing of the lighter color, that's fine, because the light's catching it, and that will make it look a little more realistic. So now I'm going to finish the other side of here. I'm going to go, and again, I'm using my big brush, but feel free to use the smaller one. I'm holding my brush down low so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay. And I'm going to clean my brush. So don't put too much paint on your brush so you don't waste your paint. Rinse your brush, dry your brush, bring that color down. Now I still have a little bit of water on mine, but it's okay. And then last but not least, that leather section on the other side. So my daughter was making eggplant parmesan. I'm wondering if she left me any to try at all. Maybe just a little bit, hopefully. All right, got quiet. Maybe I gotta play some music in the future. What do you guys want to hear? I can turn Alexa on.
Yes, I saved you some.
Yay, she saved me some. I'm live, honey. Now my husband's in here. See, when you work off your kitchen, it's almost impossible not to have chatter. But they've been very quiet. No, don't do that. Yeah, my husband's a jokester. Somebody make some wisecrack.
A fun guy.
Hey, is Madison on there? Ash wants Frank Sinatra? Oh, you're...
That perfume in your hair.
What song?
I come hither stare.
Of course, you guys can listen to your own music too.
It's witchcraft.
No, that wasn't Alexa. That was my husband. He sang with the Old Line Statesman up in Maryland for a while, and he gave him a big head. All right, so I'm throwing some of that color in just a little, just to kind of indicate there's a little bit of movement in the water. So hopefully you guys can see that. I have the shadow, so it's hard for me to tell what you can see. Oh, somebody sent me some love. All right, Frank Sinatra. What's a good Frank Sinatra song? You know, it's funny. I've never been like a huge fan, but I mean, I listen to it. What's your suggestion?
Fly Me to the Moon.
Oh, you guys want to hear Fly Me to the Moon? Okay, let's see. Alexa, play Fly Me to the Moon.
Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra and Count Basie.
See how loud it is. It's too loud, I have to turn it down. Alexa? Oh, maybe it's really quiet. Alexa, volume 3. Alexa, volume 5. Can you guys hear that? Maybe a little bit? Summer Wind. Oh. Hey, don't give Jet a big head, Laura. Alexa, volume 6. All right, I don't know if you guys can hear that now. But Ash, see, if I play this kind of music, then I'm not going to get too many young people. You're kind of unique and awesome to even request Frank Sinatra. Maybe we'll counterbalance with rap later. I don't know. We'll see. All right, that's all we're going to do on the water line. Let's keep moving. So on this center part here, oh, see, now I got too loud. Hey, Alexa, volume 4. All right, so that same color you mixed before, you're going to want to add maybe a little bit of white to it. So for me, it was a little bit of aqua green, a little bit of cerulean blue, and a little bit of white. And I'm just going to kind of test it. That's about the same. That's actually a little bit darker. So if you have a little bit darker, you can throw a few lines in there too. Okay. But we need to throw a few highlights in there too. Sometimes you get sandbars, you know, where you get that darker, or not darker look, but there's like a little bit of a coral or something that kind of creates these little patches. So you can use some of the darker color here and there. Give it that illusion. And remember, you're working at an angle, so you don't want to make everything straight, but you want to make some movement. So you're working at an angle and then just kind of little lines. They get smaller as you go towards the right because the water line is more in the distance and we're looking at it from here. So a little smaller and maybe more activity or more lines on this side. So I went darker. I kind of tried to go lighter, but I didn't. So I'm going to take the color I mixed and I'm going to add a little white to it so I can go a little lighter too. Okay, especially towards the shoreline because you're going to get some breaking waves. So you can kind of see it's just a tiny bit lighter. It's definitely not white. And every now and then, and so don't make them dashes. Make sure they're not dashes, okay? You want to just kind of let your brush kind of flow and give it a little wave here and there. There's definitely more activity in this water than in the water in the original painting. But I want to give you some options, okay? So it is just going to show up very light to give it more of a feel of movement in the water. Oh, Jeannie's joining me. Woohoo! Jeannie's another artist. Love it, love it, love it. All right, so I'm going to use my brush now, and I have a little bit of the watery paint, which has a little bit more white in it, and I'll add a little bit more of that. And as you go, you can add a little bit more white to that color. Oh, now my dog is going to chime in. Quiet. Oh, no. No. Should have known. He's right next to me, and he thinks that, as I said, I'm new at this. Oh my gosh. Okay, no more. Chihuahua, so he's going to get vocal every now and then. Anyway, I'm just putting some lines in here. A few white ones now. And as we get closer to the shore, we're going to put more. Stop. No. All right, some more in here. Every time I start to paint, he starts to bark. No, this is what happens when you do these at home. All right. So now as I get towards the shoreline, I'm going to start adding some white. So I add more white to my blue. And see, now it's getting a little more white. And I'm going to put some lines that are just kind of wavy in here. Hey, Dana.
What?
Would you take him out, please? Or take him somewhere? All right, I'm going to come in here and add some more. He's starting to chill a little bit. Memo to self. Don't have a puppy in the same room with you. All right. Now, when you think of waves, think wispy, okay? They kind of jump, they kind of raise up, come down. So you don't want all your lines to match, but just kind of go up, maybe down, up, maybe down. So up, down. And we're going to go onto, got really thick there, onto the water, onto the sand. And remember that this is farther away. So you don't want that to be as wide on this side, as deep, I should say, as you're going to have it here, where it's closer to you. But we're going to bring some of that color down into the sand. Okay? Even some of the blue, it's fine. We're going to come back and add white. I still have a little blue on my brush. And what we're trying to do is completely cover the line between the blue and the sand.
Walter.
So if you pick up a little white every now and then, you can kind of like just put little caps on some of this. So I don't work, sometimes I work straight on if I just want to do a little white cap, but I kind of push the brush down, or I lift it up or bring it back down. So I'm just trying to create some crashing waves. And they're going to get bigger here because this is the closest to us. And you're going to rinse your brush every now and then, come back, dip in. And you want to bring some of that. Now we're going to have a window here, so I'm not going to do too much right there. But I want to bring some of this onto the beach, right? So not so much the blue, so I need to clean my brush a little bit more, because I still have a little blue in my brush. We'll grab some of the white. I hope you guys have a sense of humor. My little dog barking. He's eating now. He's quiet. Okay. I'm a pretty casual person, so if you paint with me in the future, you'll see that I just kind of go with the flow. I'm used to distractions. And when I paint, that's the benefit. And I tell you what, if you're a local watching this, whether you're watching it now or whether this is a replay for you later, and you have a chance to stop by the Art Center. The Art Center is right across from the Chrysler Museum of Art in Norfolk. And we have several working artist studios. There's also some people on the second floor who are separate but also working studio. And there's a lot to see. There's some amazing talent in that place. And I'm not speaking for myself because I'm one of these artists that I kind of paint all over the place. I do a little sculpture for a while. I do pyrography for a while. I love to teach kids, and I like teaching adults. And I just basically like painting with other artists. Which I got to do when I was up in Maryland regularly because we had our Sykesville Painting Club, and I had some wonderful people to paint with. But over time, I've learned that you get ideas from watching other people or going to visit their art, and not that you're going to take somebody's idea and you're going to steal it, but it just gives you idea. It gives you that world of possibility, right? To create your own ideas. So I'm usually there in the afternoon, more often than not. We are closed at the moment, again, because of the COVID-19 guidelines at the moment, and so I'm not sure when we'll reopen. There's there's a gallery in there that has a national show, the women's show, and there's some wonderful artwork in there, and it's just a shame that it's not going to be shared as much. Now, there's a chance that the gallery will reopen, and with some time, you'll still be able to see that exhibit. They have pushed back the next exhibit, which is a surreal exhibit. I think it's based on surrealism. I'm not much of a surreal artist, so I didn't submit anything to that. But looks like they've pushed back their opening, so that might mean that we're going to go a little longer with the women's show, so you'll have a chance to come visit if you can. All right, so this is just the foam that's kind of going over into the water. Now, in order for it to look like it's actually on top of the sand, we're going to put a little bit of color underneath some of those front waves coming in. So I'm going to take the little brush, and you can actually use the little brush, or you can use the bigger round brush. I could probably use that too, but I just want to kind of show you good form here. So I'm going to use this little brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of that brown that I originally had, the burnt sienna, maybe mixed in with a little bit of green to create kind of a darker brown. And I'm going to wet my brush, and you'll kind of see when I first do it. It's not a real dark color, just darker than the sand. And I'll show you over here. Every now and then I am going to just do a kind of a line and kind of shade some of it in. Oh, here we go again. It's garbage day.
No.
Okay. So you can kind of see I'm just kind of edging it just on the end. And again, because it doesn't go out as deep on this end. All right, and then I don't want it to look like a line again, so I've cleaned my brush rinsed it, cleaned it, and I'm gonna smudge a little bit so that it isn't as thick a line. Okay, there we go. Wet my brush, bring it back, come back over here, and do some of that over here. Okay. And the reason, again, I'm doing this is a little bit of shadow when some of those waves come in, and I don't want it to be just a line. You know, I want it to look like that water's breaking over. Now, if you get too heavy in areas, you can come back once this dries with some white paint and kind of go lightly over it, and I'll show you that later. If we do it right now, what's going to happen is I'm going to have my white mixed with the brown, and then you're going to have a brown wave, and we don't want that. Okay? All right. So if you want to add, if you're waiting on me, you know, you can add a few little white caps in the water, just near that wave that's breaking in. And again, no lines, no dashes. Those lines need to be wavy. You can make some of the lines longer than others, some of them short. Okay, and that should be sufficient for that. Now the sand, if you need to adjust the sand, now's the time to do that. You can go ahead and use your big round brush again. So this brush, or a bigger round brush, and take some of that sand color. And in my case, I'm going to add a little bit of white towards the bottom, because I think my light is out here somewhere, rather than in the painting itself. So my sand's going to be a little whiter where the sand, where the light hits it. And even back here, because even though we're going to have the window, we'll be able to see through parts of the window. Okay, it doesn't have to be, you know, straight on. You can smudge it in, because, you know, the sand is not completely smooth. I mean, it could be the morning and nobody's walked on it yet, but and towards the bottom, I'm making it much lighter. Okay, all right, and that's good for me. Now, if you have the original sand color that you had, which I don't have a lot of, and I can put a little bit of that color near the wave line. Maybe it represents wet sand. I'm losing my picture. I have to touch my screen. Oh, just made it bigger. It's even better. Okay. And if you're using burnt sienna, it's going to be kind of reddish. You can also use another brown, like a burnt umber, as well, if you prefer the darker. I'm just kind of going lighter in this case. And the next thing I'm going to do before we go to the sky is I'm going to touch up my green a little bit. I'm not going to go to the very edge necessarily, but I'm going to use the dark, actually I'm going to use that same dark green. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it now so that it's a little lighter. And there are going to be parts of these hills then I'm going to go back over. Some of it I'm going to leave rough because I want to show that it's different terrain in some cases. There's some trees, different kinds of trees maybe. Still want those edges not to be completely straight. So every now and then I kind of bump out of it. See, I just bump, little bump out. And you can even take that same color, add a tiny bit of white to it. And then maybe do the lower parts. Oh, not enough white. And I was using that same medium green because I had some sap green, but I decided I was going to demonstrate how to mix it or explain how to mix it. So I used that medium kind of green that looks really not even grassy. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I guess it would be a really pretty color on a wall somewhere. Anyway, I added a little bit of yellow to that, and I added a little bit of ultramarine blue, and then that's how I got the dark color. But see, now I'm creating little patches of this lighter so that it kind of looks like there's some new sections here and there. All right. So you can kind of see, how well can you see it? Yeah, you can kind of see. Now, again, the light was over here. It's out here, okay? In front of my painting. So I'm not going to worry about putting too much light at the top because maybe the sun's going down. Let's see, if it's going down, then this must be the east, right? Because it sets in the west. So the sun is over here instead of right over the water. Now, if you walked on this beach in the morning, you would see the sun rise, which is kind of like where I live now. Cindy's lucky. Cindy, who chimed in, I'm not sure if she's still on. She moved down to where I used to live years ago, St. Petersburg, Tampa, St. Pete area, Clearwater, John's Pass, one of my favorite areas, places to go. And they're on the west side, so they get most amazing sunsets on St. Pete Beach. We used to go to a place called, what was it called? Was it the Hurricane? I don't remember. Cindy, if you're on, you can kind of enlighten me. But I used to love going there, especially when I first moved there. You know how everything kind of, after a while, isn't as exciting when you move somewhere. Okay, so that's enough. That's all I'm going to do for my mountains. We have about a half hour, so we are going to do a little bit to the sky, and then we're going to work on the windows. If you want to add a palm, and you want to start the palm, you're going to need to make or use some of that same brown that I suggested, the burnt sienna. Mix it with a little bit of green. Now here's where, even though I could use this small brush, you want to make sure that it's not a clump, that you're working with a fine point. So you're going to want to wet your brush. And then if you want to go over with a line that you had initially, and the reason we're doing this now is we're only going to touch up around this a little bit, but I want to go ahead and get some of this color in. So this is the original line, right? And it should be kind of dark. But I know that I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of sky area over here, so I'm not going to worry too much about doing that first. And then if you use this brush, you want to be very light with it, very light touch. Look at this, I paint with my fingers, can you see? You want to hold it like a pencil, but you want to just touch the canvas lightly, and then you're going to kind of drop these sections right off of this. Do not go just from the end. It's kind of like a comb. You want to catch some all the way through. I got to wet my brush. Get some more paint. Okay. And some of these, they're going to get longer. They're longer here. And they're going to get a little shorter. Not by much, but a little bit. Don't worry about perfection because you're going to do more color on top of these. Don't worry about them being really fat because you're going to do more color on top of this. This is just practice. Now I want to show you, because if you have an angle brush, then, well, actually let me show you with this one real quick. We're going to actually put some palms on this side. They kind of fall down because of gravity. Right? Something like that. So this is the center stem right here. But if you have an angled brush, it has to be not a large one, but this brush here, see the angle? If I dip it in my paint and I start with the top side, the pointy side, the very top, you know, where the angle's at the top, I can just bring the brush down and you can see how easy and how much easier it is to do than using one of those small brushes. So if you don't have one, I suggest you invest in one, because this makes your life a lot easier when you're trying to do lines. So right now I have a bunch of palms, but they're just kind of laid down there temporarily. We're going to work on the rest of the sky. I just didn't want to forget to do this. And we're just going to touch up our sky, especially if you have some brush spots. You're going to need the same color you had before. You'll have to mix it. You're going to use your flat brush again. So that big flat brush, okay? And if you don't have the exact same color on your plate or in your on your brush, remember you can mix some of it on the canvas. So I'm going to mix some of it on my plate. Right now you can kind of see how messy my plate is. There's a lot of stuff there. Okay? And I don't need to do a whole lot of touch up, but I'm going to do a little bit. So like for example here I have like a little spot, so I'm going to go right above the water line. Kind of fix that spot. And this is not the exact same color, so I'm going to take some white and adjust it as I go. And we're going to put some kind of hazy clouds in here. So I'm going to leave, as I mix the white in, I'm going to leave a little bit. Not a lot. You don't want it to look streaky, but you can leave a little bit. And then maybe even give yourself a little white cap on that cloud every now and then. So notice how I'm using some white. I'm mixing it in. And I'm going to make those a little bit like clouds. I'm just going to round my brush a little. Notice I'm not using a lot of white. Don't get too carried away with white. You know, when you look at, you know, cartoons and stuff, you see those big white fluffy clouds. But in real life, even though you see them in the sky, they have some gray in them. Sometimes they have some blue where you can see through. Sometimes they have, they reflect a little bit of the color, you know, of the sun. So we don't have time for a cloud lesson right now. In fact, one of the best cloud lessons I sat through, which is pretty awesome. Joyce Blair, a friend of mine from Maryland, who's an artist, she did a wonderful class. And we actually worked in oil paint, which is not something I do very often, but it was a lot of fun. And I had just gone out to Montana, to Glacier National Park, and then went into Canada to Banff and taken a lot of pictures up off the Icefields Parkway, where there was some really interesting clouds. And so I kind of printed some pictures and distributed them in class, and some of the artists did some of those, and they turned out really nice. So see how I just I started out with some white, and then I just go back and I add a little extra layer just on the edge, you know, so that it looks like it's just a little cloud that's rolling through. Happy little clouds, as Bob Ross would have said. In the original painting, you know how you get some of those, what looks like plain, what do you call it? Trails? what do you call that? Somebody tell me what that is. I don't know what that is. From the planes. You know how they leave the fluid? I don't know. Fuel trails, maybe. I don't remember what they're called. Anyway, not that. But you'll see a lot of these white areas where the sky kind of look like that. So if you put some of those white lines in there, not a big one, that's too much. Put some of my blue in there and mix it back up. You can do that. And then if you don't say, I don't really like that, turn it into a cloud. Just roll it around a little bit. So we're practicing with clouds. Okay, if you want to put some clouds in here while you're touching up, you can do that too. Maybe down here. Oh, I guess my song ended, huh? I don't know, it became a lot of noise between Frank Sinatra and my dog barking. I'll let you guys hear me a little bit for a while. Maybe next time I'll put some light jazz or something on in the background. Or you guys feel free to play some music too. Okay. So how's that? So in realistically, I would add some darker areas sometimes under the clouds or through the clouds so I could go back. And right now all I'm doing is kind of dabbing it in and kind of, because my paint's starting to dry there and I don't want to pull paint up. So you don't want to drag it through. But if you drag some of the darker color here underneath the clouds, a little bit, okay, give the illusion that you've got some layering of clouds. Maybe over here some. Okay. All right. So I think that's pretty good. What do you guys think? Is that good? Is that good? So right over the mountains, if you need to touch up, I would grab your little brush. Where's my little one? Right? Oh, I'm missing a brush. Oh, here it is. Here it is. So I'll just take my little brush, and if I need to go right up to them because, you know, there was a little white spot or something that bothers me, you know, I'll go in there and just touch that up. Okay. All right. So we got to touch up our palm, and I'm going to show you how to paint the windows. And then we're going to finish one window. We're probably not going to finish the second window. But once you've seen me do the first window, you should be able to finish that once I've signed off. So let's go to the palm. We added some kind of an olive green because I made the brown. I mixed the brown and the kind of light green with that. If you have the lighter green, you can take some of that lighter green and mix it with some yellow so that we can have some highlights on some of these. So I'm using the bigger brush here, this bigger round brush. Not bigger round brush, I'm sorry. The round brush that I was talking about, the smaller one. Not using the flat right now. Maybe come in there. And then you feel free to use that one or use your angle. And add a little bit of white to that color. Add it to the olive green color. Sorry about that. Not the color you just mixed. I just wanted a few light in there, a little bit of lights in there. And I'm going to make some of these a little thicker. I have two colors going on. So I got a little darker before. And then if you do have a dark green or a sap green, I'm going to go ahead and use my sap green because ideally you're going to want to come back and maybe touch it up if you don't have the right color. Let me show you how this color looks. When I paint it, you'll get an idea. It's a lot darker. So I just want some of these to be dark. So I'm using that darker green behind it. Now you can make these perfectly shaped, or maybe this one's a little bit of a straggler palm. It's been around a while. But it gives you that illusion. At the tree is over here, that's one of the palms from it. And you can even drag some of those down to the water line. You can even take a little bit of yellow, water it down a tiny bit, and maybe add, actually, we probably don't want to water too much unless, if you're working with a thick paint, you might, but if not, on these student acrylics, a lot of times they're a little more watery. They're easier to work with when you're learning. See, I'm just adding, and see how much easier it is to use with this angled brush. Just adding a few highlights. Once we put the window in, it won't be as much of a focus. And I still had some green on my brush, so I'm dragging some of that down. And last but not least, another one of these. And then I really want to make that the center pop. So I'm going to take this dark green and go down that center, which was the main branch. And I just put a dark line from here all the way down. And now I'm going to take a little bit of white on that end of that brush, very teeny tiny bit. And I'm going to follow the top of that line. Actually, that didn't work very well when I did it. Try it again. Just on top of that. To draw attention to it mostly. Okay. And that should be sufficient. It gives you the impression that, like I said, it's right outside the window. Now I'm gonna let you work on that for a moment and I'm gonna talk. We have about 20 minutes or so. I might extend it a couple of minutes just because we got started a couple of minutes late since I couldn't figure out where to set up the live feed. I had talked to Amanda Bradley over the Art Center. She had emailed me and we were going to try to make it live on the Art page. And she said, well, you can probably check in, but I'm so new at this. I'm looking at this and I have no idea. So if any of you watching have any idea how I can do that, I will kind of search that and try to figure it out for the next session, which is on Friday at 2:00, by the way. We're going to be working with wine. So if you don't paint with acrylics regularly, but you have some wine at home, this one will be fun because it's going to be a 2. I'll do another one, maybe not next week, but the week after, or maybe next week. I'll do it later in the day. Maybe it'll be a happy hour painting. And we're going to work with wine. And there is some prep for that one. You have to boil down the wine. And theoretically, when you boil it down, you lose some of the alcohol content anyway. But what it does, it creates a little bit of a richer color. So you'll have to do some prep for that. You'll need either some watercolor paper or a small canvas to work on. And though it's unusual for people to use canvas for watercolor, this isn't watercolor. It's wine. And it has a lot of sugar in it, so it tends to adhere to the canvas okay. It is one of these things where it's going to smell a little bit like wine, and in the end, when you're all finished with your painting, you will have to spray it with a spray to protect it. And so you'll have to get some of that at some point. You won't have to get it right away. It's not going to mold or anything like that on the canvas. It will in your container if you don't refrigerate it. So once you boil down your wine, you're going to want to refrigerate that. Okay? But that's on Friday at 2:00. So hopefully you'll join me and at least watch. If you don't want to paint, you can at least watch and see how I've done it. And you'll get to see a couple of the paintings I've done previously and one that I'm currently working on. All right, so we're going to paint this window. Hopefully you guys got your palm done. Everybody got their palm done. I'm going to use my angled brush because I love this angled brush, and angled brushes are great for doing lines. But if you don't have it, it's okay. You can either use a big round brush, for which you can come back with your small brush and touch up the lines. Or you can even use a flat brush, but sometimes it's hard to maneuver that without the angle. Or you can use your little brush, for which case you would draw 2 little lines to create the width. So I know that this is the top, right? So I'm using my small brush right now. I'm gonna grab some white paint. If your white paint's been on your palette for a while, you may want to refresh it, or you might want to add a little water and use that. Okay, you're going to need a couple of coats on this anyway, but see how I'm doing the edge here, and then I decide how wide I want my windowsill to be. And I had just painted the green, so I probably shouldn't have started at the top, but we're just going to do this anyway. Okay, so if that's how thick, I'll probably go a little thicker, but I'm not going to paint onto the green right now. And then I'm going to grab some more, and I'll do the same thing at the bottom. Now the catch at the bottom is that you've got that wave. So I'm going to show you how to create a shadow so you can see that that is on top and not part of that wave. So I'm just putting some white paint in here. And I'm going to use a little bit of a brown paint. Again, you can use the burnt sienna. You can mix it. You can use a darker brown if you wish. But just for demonstration, I'm going to use this burnt sienna. And I'm going to do a little line right above it so you can see where my line is. Okay? The one at the bottom you won't have to. But you can put a little bit of a gray if you wish, or a little blue, and I'll show you that momentarily. Okay? So then I'm going to come up the side with my white paint. Decide how thick that area is going to be. You already know where the end is. You already drew that in. And I showed you with that, but what I'm going to do, because it'll go faster for me, is use that angled brush. So I'm going to come here, and notice how I use my finger to guide me, kind of like a protractor. You have that little center thing. And mark that line down. And then obviously, this is the outside. So if you have a steady hand, you don't need your finger, but most of the time I use my finger. Okay, now I'm going to fill it in. Now see, you can see through it a little. So you are going to need a second coat on that window. Okay. And if anybody's tuckered out on me already, you can always come back. They can always come back and watch the end of this. As like I said, I'm demonstrating the one window. And then we will say goodbye, and we'll hopefully meet again. And see, I'm mixing it with the green. Silly me. It's okay. And you can finish your second window, or take a break and come finish your second window. It's all right. I'm going to go back and do a second coat anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Now, because you want to be able to see, and there should be a little shadow anyway, potentially. I'm going to put a little brown here, and I'm going to put a little brown here. Oh, need more paint. And I'm going to put a little brown, connect this corner here. Okay. So that's the inside rim of the window. Get a little bit more brown paint while you guys do that real quick. We've got about 10 minutes or so, maybe 15. There it is. Didn't want to come out of the tube. All right. Okay, so I already have some brown. I just grabbed some more brown because we're going to need it. And again, you can mix it with a little bit of green to make it darker. But make sure that you mix the green into the brown, because the brown is your primary color. What you're using. Okay, you can add a little bit of white if you don't like that tone. Just kind of lighten it up. And like I just did now, you're going to see when I do this again, I have a little bit too much paint on my brush right now. Get some of that off. It happens. Okay, I'm going to come back here like that, and then I'm going to go down one more time. See, it's a lot easier with an angled brush. Okay? Now, if you can't see the bottom and you want to put a little bit of a line there, it's fine. You're going to fill that in with white later. But I want you to be able to see that, the bottom. And here as well, because you've got that white right there. And now you should be able to see it. Now, if you want the window to have, to look like it's got a style, and you want to add some color there, sorry, got a frog in my throat. You can do that. You can also make it angled. So make your window, I actually like the angle. Any way you want to make it. Okay? Now, this could be a clear window. If you like it the way it is and you don't want to add any centerpieces, that's absolutely up to you. But I'm going to go ahead and add 2 sections. And if you're looking at the picture on your computer, or you're not, I'm going to show you again. You see how I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But they're not even, because this is coming into the painting, so you're not going to use the same size squares. So we're going to come in here somewhere, and we're going to paint a white line to make that division. So I'm just going to use white for now. And again, I've just painted some green and some brown, so it's okay. You're going to do a second coat anyway. So you're going to come down and create a line. Okay. Now obviously it's going to be a little wider than that. So if you're using your small brush, you can work on that. And then if you want this to, again, seem like it's attached to that top part, you don't want to go as far deep into it. So I just kind of came up a little. There might still be a little bit of a line, but I'm going to come all the way down. Now when you get to the bottom, you're going to need to go right above that brown line as well. Like I said, I'm at a strange angle, so my lines may not be perfectly straight. All right, and that's that division. And then we got to do 2 more. So if you want to measure, you can. If not, you're going to want to eyeball it. Really, the deeper this part is closer to you a little, well, I don't know if it really is, but it kind of gives you that illusion. So you want to make them fairly close. But if the lower part's a little taller, that's how it was in my reference photo initially. I'm going to do that. Go above that. And I don't want lines in between here. I want it to seem seamless, so when I go back with my second coat, I'll fix that. Okay? Now on the top, oh wait, you know what? I just did the wrong angle. Ha ha ha. Oops. Oops. And I probably showed you guys wrong too. So if it's still wet, I'm gonna fix this real quick. I knew that was bound to happen. Yep. Gonna put some of the watercolor in there. Sorry about that, guys. Started looking at the time and not paying attention to the angle of this. See, even if you paint all the time, you make mistakes. Okay. So you just put your watercolor right over that. Don't forget some of those water lines in there. All right, we'll do that one again in just a moment. Sorry about that. All right, let's go back. Let's go to the top part and do that. So this one is going to have more of the angle of the top, and this one's going to have more of the angle of the bottom. Not as much though, okay? So you just want to go a little less angled. So I would say you're going to figure out about a third of the way down, probably about like that. So that's why I had to redo the bottom one, because the angle was wrong. And preferably not too much water on your paint, or you'll drip. And you'll be able to see through it for the moment, but once it dries, you're going to do a second coat. And you can even give it some a whitewash kind of effect, make it look kind of like wood that's been whitewashed if you want. All right, so I'm going to come up about here, and I'm going to do it this time kind of downward. Again, not at the same exact angle as the one above, the one below, but more or less in that same direction. Okay, so there's that. So you can go back to the top part where it's dry now, and you can put more white paint in there. You can go to the side part where it should be more dry now. And do that. And if you need a third coat, you can do a third coat. Now I'm moving a little quicker right now because we're wrapping up, but you can continue to paint, like I said, when I'm finished. And if you have any questions, you can you can message me on the event page. I'll get it. I'll respond. We'll do this step by step again next week, likely. As we go, I am going to make this a little bit more instructional, and then I'll teach you some different things related to acrylic painting, more so than you would get in a just paint party class. Today was simple because I said it was going to be easy. I know a couple of the people on here have painted with me before, so I know they've got the skills to continue moving on. But that doesn't mean that if you're new or you know someone that's new and they want to try it, they can still do it, because I'm never going to make it that complicated, simply for the fact that we only have a couple of hours. Okay, come back. This one we just did, so these might not paint as well yet. And then the other thing you want to do is you want to create a shadow like you did on the edges here. You want to create one under and to the left of the windowsill. Okay, so you're going to have a shadow on this side here, and you're going to stop because obviously there's another section, and you're going to put one here. You're going to go to the other side of this and put one here. So the only side in this section that doesn't have a shadow is the one on the right, on this one, the right side of this one. So you can also touch these up, make it a little thicker if you wanted to give the illusion that the window's a little thicker than that. And then we're going to do the same thing up here. But now you're not seeing the top of this one. So you're only going to go on the bottom of this one, and you're going to do the side of this one. And again, you can adjust your color. I would usually make this a lighter brown. It was a little bright, lighter brown on the original, but for demonstration purposes, I'm not worried too much about the color. You can kind of decide. It could be a gray if you prefer. And then I'm going to go up here. And you're not going to see the top here. You're just going to see the left side of this one. Okay? And the only place we miss then would be here. Okay? As you can see the top part of that. How does that look? All right. So for the handle, you can do whatever you wish. You can make a little doorknob if you prefer. I'm going to show you all I did. I'll use my little brush. I just took some of that same brown color that I used for the inside of the windowsills, and I made these just kind of right here. I centered it here, and I kind of, it looks like a little pipe handle almost. Like that. Now, actually, you might want to go out a little deeper than that. So if you're going to widen it this way and come in. You can also make it come off, you know, if you want it to be a wider or deeper handle, then it could actually come off there. Okay. And when you do that, you're going to want a little drop shadow. I did not instruct you guys to use any black. And we also didn't end up putting any colors in the sky. So if you kind of want to show, because I think the original, and I didn't think about this when I started demonstrating this one, the original actually had the light back here because the sun was coming down. That's the other reason the sand was darker. This time I made the sun over here, which means you're not going to see the sun. So here it wouldn't make sense to add those colors, even though I know it was really pretty, but I kind of demonstrated this one differently. So if you want to do that and you want to practice in the future, always think about where your light's going to be. You're outdoors, so now it's going to be where's the sun, right? So based on the sun, you're going to decide where your shadows are going to be. Now, if you create a darker brown, I'm going to put a little darker on the inside. And I mixed a little blue into the brown. And I'm going to create a little shadow right there. And then if you want, you can add a little shadow, a little highlight on the right side, or right on the top of it. Oop, not enough white. That's still not enough white. Probably need to just do white. Yeah, looks like I need white. Okay. Something like that. Now the last thing I'm going to show you, because again we're not doing the second door because we don't have time. But what I'm going to show you is on that beach where we put the brown for the water coming in. You can kind of see a little bit of a distinctive color in here. It's okay to have some of that showing, but every now and then you can take some white and cover up that line. Not a line, smudge it in, and then if you put too much brown, every now and then cover some of that up. Okay? Just take some of the white and absolutely cover it up. I didn't need to do too much because I'm not too thick, but okay. And then any touch up you want to do. You guys have any questions before I let you go? Probably went a little too high up there, so I might take some of my blue green and kind of bring it down a little bit. Remember, that's further in the distance, so you're not going to see as much of a wave. So I muted that a little. Now you can have some fun when I leave you. You could add a little lighthouse at the end of that area of trees. You could put a boat in there. You could put a beach towel. You can write your name in the sand. Maybe when you sign. When you sign, you can just make it look like it's signed in the sand. So there are a lot of different things you can do. As you can see, when you look at this painting and you look at this painting, every painting I do is always a little different. It's hard to completely duplicate what someone else does. In this case, I wasn't even trying. I just wanted to play, and I was hoping that we'd have some folks on, or that will do this afterwards, that will, use their own photo reference and just kind of make their own little paradise outside their window. I'm going to finish the window at some point, but I'm not going to get to finish it now. It's 4:04, and I think that's about when we started, was about 4 minutes late or so, maybe 5 minutes. So I'm going to let you guys go. And I really, really, really am happy that you painted with me today. Laura, Ash, you guys are two of my biggest fans, and I love you to death. So glad you could be on. And for anybody else watching this, please feel free to come back to my page and see what else I'm going to be offering. And if you just want someone to paint with so you don't feel lonely, if you just want to try something you've never tried before, if you have a suggestion for something for me to offer, I am completely open-minded about this. This keeps me busy. I am one of those people that, because I cannot do events right now with a lot of people, that everything's been postponed. And so all I can do is paint, and I want to do it with others. And I'm perfectly willing to do it online. So thanks again for coming to my first live lesson, and I hope to see you guys again. Take care. Bye.